In a world increasingly defined by geopolitical tensions and shifting alliances, the year 2025 has seen a notable rise in anti-American sentiment. But what fuels this widespread discontent? Is it a matter of historical grievances, economic sanctions, or ideological clashes? In this video, we delve into the intricate web of reasons why these 10 nations harbor strong aversion towards the United States today. At top 10, we have Pakistan. The relationship between the two nations has been described as a roller coaster characterized by close coordination and lows marked by deep bilateral estrangement. Some of the reasons for the conflict include U.S. drone strikes in Pakistan's tribal areas, which killed many civilians. The United States has imposed sanctions on Pakistan on various occasions to force compliance with its strategic interests since 1965. With Pakistan's willingness to participate with the United States in the wars in Somalia and Bosnia, relations improved. However, the United States again suspended aid and imposed sanctions along with India in 1998, only to be lifted once again with the United States' engagement in Afghanistan in 2001. The U.S. has accused Pakistan of harboring terrorists, straining relations. The U.S. cut financial aid to Pakistan, which hurt its economy. Pakistanis see the U.S. as untrustworthy due to shifting alliances in the region. At top 9, we have Afghanistan. Relations between Afghanistan and the United States began in 1921 under the leaderships of King Amanullah Khan and President Warren G. Harding, respectively. The first contact between the two nations occurred further back in the 1830s when the first recorded person from the United States explored Afghanistan. The Taliban, who imposed strict Islamic rule following a devastating civil war, were ousted by a U.S.-led invasion in 2001, but made a rapid comeback to take over almost all of the country after U.S. forces left in 2021. Many Afghans blame the U.S. for 2 decades of war and destruction. The U.S. drone campaign caused civilian casualties, increasing resentment. The U.S. froze Afghan assets, worsening the country's economic crisis. At top 8, we have Iraq. While the U.S. public's perception of Iraq as a threat has decreased, the Islamic State group remains a top security concern. There has been tension, war, and distrust between the U.S. and Iran for decades. The Gulf War in the 1990s, the invasion of Kuwait, and other notable events have made Iran one of the top U.S. enemy countries. The U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, based on false claims of weapons of mass destruction, led to a deadly and prolonged conflict. The war resulted in mass casualties, infrastructure destruction, and years of instability. U.S. troops remained in Iraq for years, leading to resentment among Iraqis. While some Iraqis appreciate the removal of Saddam Hussein, many believe the U.S. created more problems than it solved. At top 7, we have Syria. The United States was involved in the Syrian civil war, conducting airstrikes and supporting rebel groups. Severed relations with the U.S. in 2012 in response to American support of the rebel side in the Syrian civil war. The country is considered a dictatorship with poor human rights protections and a rumored tendency to shelter terrorists such as Al-Qaeda. U.S. sanctions have crippled Syria's economy. The Syrian government sees U.S. intervention as a violation of its sovereignty. Many Syrians blame the U.S. for prolonging the war and causing destruction. U.S. policy is primarily concerned with the removal of ISIS. Under President Obama, official American policy has been that Bashar al-Assad must go. The U.S. has provided material and training to some Syrian opposition groups. At top 6, we have Cuba. Cuba has been considered an enemy of the United States since the early 1960s, after Fidel Castro's government nationalized American-owned properties and allied with the Soviet Union. This led to an economic embargo and the severing of diplomatic relations. Despite a brief thaw in relations during the Obama administration, restrictions were reinstated under the Trump administration, and as of 2023, tensions remain due to Cuba's communist government and human rights issues. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 and the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961 intensified hostility. The U.S. has historically supported Cuban dissidents, which the government sees as interference. While relations improved under Obama, they worsened again under Trump and remain tense in 2025. At top 5, we have Venezuela. Relations soured in the early 2000s as then-President Hugo Chavez declared himself socialist and anti-imperialist. He accused the U.S. of covert attempts to undermine the government on multiple occasions and severed diplomatic ties in 2019. The U.S. has imposed economic sanctions on Venezuela, particularly targeting its oil industry. The U.S. has openly supported opposition leaders trying to overthrow the Venezuelan government. U.S. involvement in Latin America has historically been seen as imperialistic. The Venezuelan government often blames the U.S. for its economic problems to consolidate power. At top 4, we have China. Soon after the start of the Korean War, General Douglas MacArthur led U.S. forces across the 38th parallel and drove north towards China, which brought China into the conflict and precipitated the first military clash between U.S. and Chinese forces since the Boxer Uprising of 1900. Like Russia, China seeks to usurp and undermine U.S. global leadership in many categories, including international economic influence, political influence, and Olympic medal count. The U.S.-China trade war initiated in 2018 has caused economic friction. The U.S. supports Taiwan, which China claims as its territory, increasing military tensions. Disputes over the South China Sea have led to confrontations between U.S. and Chinese forces. The U.S. criticizes China's human rights record, particularly regarding Uyghur Muslims in Hong Kong. At top 3, we have Russia. Relations had been bad since 1917 as Russia had become communist and the West had interfered to try and stop it. Russia had also not been allowed to join the League of Nations in the 1920s and things had got worse in the 1930s. Long-running rival, as the USSR and later as Russia, which actively seeks to usurp and undermine U.S. global leadership in many categories, ranging from international influence and military might to Olympic medal count. Historical Cold War rivalry never fully ended, and relations worsened after the U.S. imposed sanctions on Russia following its annexation of Crimea in 2014. U.S. opposition to Russia's actions in Ukraine, Syria, and other geopolitical hotspots has increased hostilities. Russia views NATO expansion as a direct threat to its security. Accusations of U.S. interference in Russian domestic politics have further strained relations. At top 2, we have Iran. Iran and the United States have had no formal diplomatic ties since 1980, with Pakistan and Switzerland serving as their respective protecting powers. Once close allies under the Shah, relations deteriorated after the 1979 Iranian Revolution and the U.S.-backed coup against Mohammad Mossadegh in 1953. While the U.S. and Iran once enjoyed friendly relations, the 1979 to 1981 hostage crisis, in which 52 Americans were held hostage in Iran for more than 444 days during the Iranian Revolution, marked the end of those relations. The U.S. severed diplomatic ties with Iran in 1980 and had not renewed them as of 2023. The U.S. has imposed crippling sanctions targeting Iran's economy, particularly its oil exports. The U.S. withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018, worsening tensions. Proxy conflicts between the U.S. and Iran-backed militias in the Middle East continue to fuel animosity. At top 1, we have North Korea. The United States does not have diplomatic relations with the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. U.S. policy towards North Korea aims to ensure peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula, including through the pursuit of complete denuclearization. Heavy economic sanctions imposed by the U.S. have significantly impacted North Korea's economy. The North Korean government uses anti-American propaganda to maintain control over its population. In conclusion, the geopolitical landscape in 2025 shows a complex web of relationships and tensions. While these 10 countries have expressed significant discontent towards America, it is crucial to understand the historical, cultural, and political context that shape these sentiments. As global dynamics continue to evolve, fostering dialogue and understanding remains essential for a more peaceful and cooperative world. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe for more content on global affairs.